Bills Mafia. I gotta be honest with you. Today feels like one of those days where you look at the news around this team and you just stop for a second and go, okay, something is definitely happening in Buffalo right now. Because within the span of basically one off-season moment, two completely different stories started circulating around the Bills. And somehow, they both hit the exact same position group that every single one of us has been talking about for months. And if you're a Bills fan like me, you know exactly why that matters. This offense, this passing game, the weapons around our quarterback, that has been one of the biggest conversations since the end of last season. We've all been wondering what the front office was going to do. Were they going to draft someone, sign a free agent, make a trade? Well, something just happened that might completely reshape that conversation. And at the same time, another situation around the league suddenly opened a door that nobody expected to even exist again. Two different developments, two different directions the team could go. But together, they could completely change how the Bills' offense looks heading into the next season. And trust me, one of these stories in particular might genuinely shock a lot of fans. So we're going to break down everything that's going on, what it actually means for the team, and why this moment might be a lot bigger than it first appears. But before we get into it, real quick, if you're part of Bills Mafia and you enjoy talking about the team like real fans do, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Bills Nation Update is still a new channel, and the goal right now is to reach 2,000 subscribers. So, if you want to help build a place where Bills fans can talk real football together, I'd truly appreciate it. So let's talk about the move that actually just happened, because the Bills have officially made their first big move at wide receiver this offseason. Buffalo traded for DJ Moore from the Chicago Bears. And honestly, the more you dig into this move, the more it starts to make a lot of sense for where this team is right now. The trade itself is pretty interesting. According to reports, the Bills are sending a second-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft to Chicago. In return, Buffalo gets DJ Moore and a fifth-round pick back. Because Buffalo usually drafts late in the second round, that fifth-round pick coming back basically balances the value. When analysts break it down, the total cost of the trade ends up being roughly equivalent to a high third-round pick. So when you look at it that way, this was not some crazy expensive blockbuster deal. It's actually a pretty reasonable price for a proven receiver. Now technically, the trade can't become official until next Wednesday when the new NFL league year begins, but all reports indicate the agreement is already in place. And here's another key part of the story: the contract. DJ Moore is scheduled to make $24.5 million per season from 2026 through 2029. His 2026 salary is fully guaranteed, and $15 million of the 2027 salary becomes guaranteed next week. On top of that, according to his agent Drew Rosenhaus, the Bills are also guaranteeing $15.5 million of his 2028 salary. So, Buffalo is clearly committing to him being part of this offense for multiple years. But here's where the story gets really interesting for Bills fans. Because DJ Moore is not just some random receiver being brought into the system. He already has history with Joe Brady. Back in 2020 and 2021, when Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, DJ Moore was one of the main weapons in that offense, and those seasons were extremely productive. Moore had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with Brady calling plays. In 2020, he averaged 18.1 yards per reception, which shows exactly the type of explosive downfield ability he brings. So this isn't a guess for Joe Brady. He already knows how to use this player. Now, the reason Chicago was willing to move on from Moore actually tells another big part of this story. Statistically, Moore had a huge year in 2023, putting up 1,364 receiving yards. But after that, his numbers started dropping. In 2024, he finished with 966 yards, and then in 2025, that number dropped again to 682 yards. A big reason for that decline is what happened with the Bears' offense. Rookie receiver Rome Odunze started emerging as a major weapon, and Chicago also leaned heavily on their tight ends as a central part of the offense. As a result, Moore slowly slid down the pecking order. At one point, some Bears fans even started speculating that he had mentally checked out late in the season, especially after what people pointed to as the final route he ran in a Bears uniform. One Bears media personality even said this about the situation. "I think it makes sense for both sides. He was the Bears' fourth option going into next year, and they needed the flexibility with now 2 holes on the offensive line." So, from Chicago's perspective, they get a valuable draft pick and cap flexibility. From Buffalo's perspective, they might be getting a receiver who still has a lot left in the tank. And remember, DJ Moore is only 28 years old. That's still very much prime territory for a wide receiver. Now imagine what that could look like in this offense, with Josh Allen throwing him the football. There's a very real chance that Moore could develop into the number 1 receiver in this offense. And even if he doesn't become the clear number 1, he could easily be a 1B option, which would still massively improve the Bills' passing attack. And when you look at the updated Bills wide receiver depth chart, it suddenly starts looking a lot more interesting. Right now, it projects something like this: DJ Moore as the primary outside receiver, Josh Palmer on the other boundary, Khalil Shakir continuing to dominate the slot role, Keon Coleman as the top rotational receiver with upside, and Mecole Hardman providing depth and special teams value. But the story doesn't end there. The Bills are still expected to add more help at wide receiver this offseason. One move that seems likely is the team releasing Curtis Samuel, which would open up another roster spot and free some cap space. That could allow Buffalo to either sign another free agent or potentially draft another receiver. There's even been discussion about possibly re-signing Brandon Cooks as another boundary receiver option. And unfortunately, it's going to be difficult to count on Tyrell Shavers early on after his playoff knee injury. So, make no mistake about it. The Bills are not done addressing the position yet. But bringing in DJ Moore already changes the picture of this offense in a big way. You're adding a receiver who has proven he can produce 1,000-yard seasons, a player who already has chemistry with the offensive coordinator, and someone who now gets to play with one of the most talented quarterbacks in football. That alone makes this a really intriguing move. But here's the thing. Just when Bills fans were starting to process this trade, something else around the league suddenly happened. Something that nobody expected. And it involves a name that every single Bills fan knows very well. Because another veteran wide receiver just became available. And the possibility of him coming back to Buffalo? Yeah, that conversation just exploded across the NFL. And when you hear who it is, you're going to understand why this could turn into one of the wildest storylines of the entire offseason. So now we need to talk about the second story that suddenly shook the entire conversation around the Bills' wide receiver room. Because just as Buffalo makes a move to bring in a new weapon, another very familiar name has unexpectedly become available. The New England Patriots have reportedly released Stefon Diggs. Yeah, that's Stefon Diggs. And the moment that news came out, one question immediately started circulating across the NFL, and especially among Bills fans. Could he actually come back to Buffalo? Now let's first look at what happened in New England. Diggs spent just 1 season with the Patriots, but statistically, he was still very productive. In the 2025 season, the 32-year-old receiver finished with 85 receptions, 1,013 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. That marked his 7th career 1,000-yard season, which shows that even at this stage of his career, he can still produce at a high level. So the release wasn't about performance. It was mainly about money. Diggs' salary cap hit was scheduled to rise significantly in 2026, and if the Patriots had kept him on the roster, additional guaranteed money would have kicked in. Because of that financial situation, New England decided it made more sense to move on, which suddenly turns Diggs into one of the most interesting free agents on the entire market. And that's where things start getting really interesting for Buffalo. Because the moment he became available, analysts and fans immediately started bringing up the possibility of a reunion with the Bills. And the reason is obvious. During his 4 seasons in Buffalo, Diggs was one of the most productive receivers in the entire league. He became the centerpiece of the passing offense alongside Josh Allen, and together they formed one of the most dangerous quarterback-receiver duos in football. In 2020, Diggs even led the entire NFL in receptions and receiving yards and earned multiple Pro Bowl selections during his time with the team. Those years were some of the most explosive offensive seasons Bills fans have seen in a long time. So naturally, when his name suddenly appears on the free agent market, people start wondering if the door could reopen. From a pure football perspective, there are definitely reasons why it could make sense. Even now, Diggs remains an elite route runner, someone who understands how to separate from defenders and become a reliable target in big moments. Adding that type of experience to the receiver room could give the Bills another proven playmaker. And of course, there's still that existing chemistry with Josh Allen. Quarterback and receiver connections like that don't just disappear overnight. But at the same time, there are also very real reasons why this reunion might never happen. Diggs' previous departure from Buffalo came during a period where there were tensions inside the organization. The relationship between player and team didn't end in the smoothest way, and sometimes when things end like that, both sides simply prefer to move forward instead of revisiting the past. On top of that, Diggs is currently dealing with legal issues and off-field controversy, which could make teams around the league cautious about offering him a long-term deal. Then there's the financial side again. Buffalo's front office still has to carefully manage the salary cap, and every move they make needs to fit the long-term plan of the roster. Bringing in a veteran receiver at this stage of his career would require the team to really evaluate whether that move fits their future strategy. So right now, the situation sits in that fascinating middle ground. It's not impossible, but it's definitely complicated. And that's exactly why the idea has already become one of the biggest storylines of this NFL offseason. Because if something like that actually happened, you'd be reuniting one of the most productive quarterback-receiver duos of the last several years. And at the same time, you'd be creating one of the most dramatic comeback stories the NFL has seen in a long time. For now, though, the entire league is basically waiting to see where Stefon Diggs ends up next, and whether the door back to Buffalo is truly closed, or if there's still one more chapter left in that story. Now, when you step back and look at both of these situations together, something really interesting starts to appear about where the Bills are right now. On one side, the team just made a clear move to reshape the wide receiver room by bringing in DJ Moore, a player who still has multiple prime years ahead of him and already has a strong connection with Joe Brady's offensive system. On the other side, the sudden availability of Stefon Diggs reminds everyone just how much the receiver position has defined this offense over the last few years. One move points toward the future of the offense. The other reminds us of a very powerful chapter from the past. And together, they show that Buffalo is still actively searching for the right combination of weapons around Josh Allen. whether that means building a new receiving core from scratch, or possibly reconnecting with someone who already helped build this offense into one of the most explosive units in football. Either way, one thing is clear. The Bills are far from finished shaping this roster. And if this offseason keeps going the way it just started, we might be looking at a few more surprises before the next season even begins. But now I want to hear from you, Bills Mafia. Do you like the move to bring in DJ Moore? And if the opportunity actually appeared, would you want to see Stefon Diggs return to Buffalo? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, because these are exactly the kinds of debates Bills fans need to have right now. And if you enjoy talking about the Bills with honest opinions, the good, the bad, and everything in between, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Bills Nation Update is still a brand new channel, and the first big goal is reaching 2,000 subscribers. So, if you want to support a place where real Bills fans can talk about what's happening with the team every single week, hit that subscribe button and be part of building this community. And as always, go Bills!